Greetings to all history lovers and those who just dropped by this channel out of curiosity. Have you ever wondered what the most magnificent celebration of the Middle Ages looked like? Picture this: a colorful crowd, merchants shouting, the smell of spices and fresh pastries, sounds of music, laughter, noise, commotion, a place where a rural dweller could see foreign wonders for the first time in their life, and a nobleman could acquire exotic goods for their castle. Welcome to the medieval fair, the true center of life, trade, and entertainment of the past. If you're interested in learning more about the daily life of people from the past, how they traded, had fun, and interacted with each other, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Together we'll explore the most interesting and little-known aspects of history that don't make it into official textbooks but make the past alive and tangible. And today we'll dive into the noisy, vibrant, and amazing world of the medieval fair, a phenomenon that changed the economy, culture, and even worldview of medieval Europe. Let's start with the fact that a medieval fair was not just a market in the modern sense, it was a grand event that combined economic, religious, entertainment, and social functions. Fairs began appearing in Europe around the 11th and 12th centuries when, after the Dark Ages of the early Middle Ages, trade revival and urban growth began. The word fair itself came from the Latin feria, meaning holiday or day off, and indeed, fairs were often timed to coincide with religious holidays or feast days of patron saints of cities. One of the most famous was the Champagne Fair in France, which took place several times a year in different cities of the Champagne province. This fair was so important for European trade that it had its own code of laws and court for resolving trade disputes. Imagine, in the 13th century, when most people were born, lived, and died without leaving their village, merchants from Flanders, Italy, Germany, and even distant eastern countries came to the Champagne Fair. What did such a fair look like? Let's mentally transport ourselves there. Usually, fairs took place on the outskirts of a city or in a specially designated place, spacious enough to accommodate numerous stalls, tents, and crowds of visitors. A few days before the fair began, this place turned into a real construction anthill. Wooden counters and canopies were set up, tents were pitched, temporary cattle pens were built, and even entire streets of wooden shops. Interestingly, the arrangement of merchants at the fair was not chaotic. There was a clear system. Goods of the same type were sold in one place, forming distinctive quarters. There were streets of cloth merchants, jewelers, leather craftsmen, weapon makers, and so on. This made it easier for buyers to find the goods they needed and allowed for easier control of quality and prices. Speaking of control, large fairs always had official inspectors present, monitoring compliance with measures and weights, quality of goods, and honest trading. Fabrics were especially popular at fairs. Among the most valuable goods of the Middle Ages, Italian silk, English wool, Flemish cloth, all these goods could be found at a large fair. Each region was famous for its special type of fabric, and an experienced merchant could determine the origin of material at first glance. For most people, buying new clothes was a rare and significant event, and at the fair one could choose the best available. Spices and seasonings were no less important goods. In an era when refrigerators didn't exist and the diet consisted of rather monotonous products, spices were a real treasure. They not only improved the taste of food, but also helped preserve products longer. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, these spices familiar to us were fabulously expensive in the Middle Ages and were accessible to far from everyone. At some fairs, pepper was sold by the piece, not by weight. Spice merchants were often among the richest and most respected at the fair, as they brought their goods from distant eastern countries, risking their lives in dangerous journeys. Interestingly, at a medieval fair, you could buy not only material goods, but also forgiveness of sins. Yes, the church actively participated in fair trade, selling indulgences, special charters that, as people of that time believed, shortened the time of the soul's stay in purgatory. Next to stalls selling wool or metal goods, you could see a tent where a monk or priest sold these spiritual goods. But the fair was not only a place of trade, but also a huge platform for information exchange. In the era before the invention of the printing press, telegraph, and especially the internet, the fair was a real information center. Here you could learn the latest news from distant countries, information about prices for goods in different regions, political news, and even rumors about noble persons. Some historians believe that it was at fairs that the profession we would today call journalism was born. People appeared who specialized in collecting and spreading news. For many fair visitors, the main goal was not shopping, but entertainment, and it must be said, there was plenty of it. Acrobats, jugglers, animal trainers, puppeteers, they all came to the fair to earn money and demonstrate their art. Imagine a square where dozens of performers act simultaneously, each trying to attract viewers' attention with shouts, music, or unusual tricks. One of the most popular entertainments was performances by traveling actors who performed comic skits, parodies, and even entire plays. These performances were called farces and often mocked those in power: nobles, priests, wealthy townspeople. Interestingly, there was unspoken freedom of speech at the fair. Jokes and satire that at other times could have led to serious consequences were acceptable at the fair. It was a kind of carnival time when usual rules and hierarchies were temporarily overturned. Puppet shows were no less popular. Puppet theater was accessible entertainment even for the poorest fair visitors. The plots of performances were diverse, from biblical stories to comic domestic scenes. The main character of many performances was a cunning and resourceful character who deceived the rich and representatives of power, a predecessor of the famous Punch or Russian Petrushka. If you think gambling is an invention of modern times, you're greatly mistaken. At a medieval fair, you could find many opportunities to test your luck and possibly win or lose a fortune. Dice, cards, various games of skill and wit. All this attracted crowds of willing participants. Despite the fact that the church condemned gambling and authorities periodically tried to ban it, at fairs it flourished. Professional gamblers specially came to fairs in search of naive simpletons ready to part with their money. We cannot fail to mention the gastronomic side of the fair. The smells of cooking food filled the air, attracting hungry visitors. Here you could try dishes that an ordinary person never cooked at home: pies with unusual fillings, roasted meat, sweets with expensive spices. For most people of that time, whose diet was rather meager and monotonous, fair food was a real celebration of taste. However, not everything at the fair was rosy and cloudless. Large gatherings of people and valuable goods attracted thieves, swindlers, and other criminal elements. Pickpockets worked in the crowd. Swindlers offered miraculous potions or counterfeits of precious goods, and more serious crimes occurred at night. To protect against crime, special guards were organized at large fairs, and sometimes even temporary prisons were created for lawbreakers. Interestingly, many fairs operated under special fair law, different from ordinary city or feudal law. It was aimed at simplifying and speeding up trade operations and conflict resolution. Cases were heard by special judges, often on the same day the complaint was filed. Punishments for violating trade rules were severe, from large fines to trading bans, which for a merchant was tantamount to ruin. Money changers played a special role at fairs, predecessors of modern bankers. In medieval Europe, there was no unified currency. Each kingdom, duchy, or even city could mint its own coins. At a fair, you could encounter dozens of different coins, and money changers helped merchants and buyers by exchanging one money for another. Over time, the functions of money changers expanded. They began providing loans, writing bills of exchange, and even organizing money transfers between different cities and countries. This is how the modern banking system was born at fairs. Curiously, fairs also had educational significance. For many people, especially from rural areas, the fair was the only opportunity to see the world beyond their village. Here you could meet people from distant countries with unusual appearance and clothing, hear foreign speech, learn about strange customs and incredible animals. The fair broadened horizons, changed worldviews, showed how vast and diverse the world was. It's no wonder that many researchers believe fairs played an important role in overcoming the insularity of medieval society and prepared the ground for the Renaissance era. At fairs, not only commodity, but also cultural exchange took place. Musicians from different countries performed their melodies. Artists demonstrated performances unusual for local residents. Storytellers shared legends and fairy tales of their peoples. This is how new musical instruments, dances, and literary plots spread. Many folkloric motifs that we today consider traditional for a certain region actually came there thanks to fairs. It's worth noting that medieval fairs were also centers of innovation of their time. Merchants brought not only goods but also new technologies, tools, and production methods. Craftsmen could see products of their colleagues from other regions, adopt their methods, or conversely, demonstrate their unique skills. Thus, fairs accelerated technological development and the spread of new ideas. Speaking of craftsmen, fairs often featured demonstration performances by masters of various crafts. Glassblowers, blacksmiths, jewelers demonstrated their mastery right in front of the public, attracting potential buyers and apprentices. For many young people, such demonstrations became a decisive factor in choosing their future profession, and for experienced masters, the fair was an opportunity to find talented apprentices or establish useful connections with colleagues and material suppliers. It's important to understand that medieval fairs were not only an economic but also a social phenomenon. They temporarily erased the rigid class boundaries of medieval society. At the fair, a peasant could stand next to a knight watching acrobat performances, a monk could bargain with a Jewish merchant, and a townswoman could flirt with a visiting minstrel. Of course, social differences didn't disappear completely, but the fair created a special space where usual rules were somewhat softened. No less interesting aspect of fairs were the matrimonial opportunities they provided. In a society where the choice of potential spouses was often limited to a small circle of neighbors, the fair gave a chance to meet someone new. Parents brought marriageable daughters to the fair. Young men tried to impress girls they liked. There were even special fair traditions and games aimed at introducing young people. Some historians believe these traditions became predecessors of modern dating. An important component of fair life were various competitions: archery, wrestling, weightlifting, competitions in dexterity and strength. All this attracted participants and spectators. For young people, such competitions were a way to show themselves, earn prizes, and respect. And for spectators, exciting spectacle and occasion for betting. Some fairs even held small nightly tournaments accessible for viewing by anyone, unlike large tournaments which were usually the prerogative of nobility. Fairs also had important religious significance. Many of them were timed to coincide with saints' days or religious holidays, and part of the income went to maintain the local church or monastery. At the fair, you could see religious processions, mystery plays, performances on biblical themes, and sometimes relics displayed for veneration. For the church, the fair was an opportunity to strengthen the faith of parishioners and collect donations, and for ordinary people, to combine entertainment with piety. When the fair ended, an equally interesting process of dismantling trading rows and participants returning home began. Merchants united in caravans for safe travel, hired guards, agreed on routes. Many of them went immediately to the next fair in another city, following a circular route that could take the whole year. Only the most successful traders could afford to return home with full purses and rest until the next season. Interestingly, over time, the role of fairs in Europe's economic life began to change. With the development of permanent trade, the appearance of permanent shops in cities, and improvement of transportation routes, the need for large periodic fairs began to decrease. By the 16th and 17th centuries, many famous medieval fairs either disappeared or transformed into predominantly entertainment events. However, their influence on the economy, culture, and social life of Europe was enormous and long-lasting. Modern fairs and festivals that we visit today are largely heirs to those medieval events. Of course, now they mainly serve an entertainment function, but some elements remain unchanged: the atmosphere of celebration, trading rows, artist performances, the opportunity to try unusual food and see something new. And when we visit a modern fair or festival, we, without realizing it, participate in a tradition that spans almost 1,000 years. Summarizing our journey into the world of the medieval fair, we can say that this phenomenon was a true microcosm of its era. In the fair, as in a mirror, all aspects of medieval life were reflected: economy and trade, religion and superstitions, art and entertainment, social structures and their transformation. By studying fairs, we better understand the people of that time, their needs, aspirations, and dreams. I hope this journey into the bright and noisy world of the medieval fair was engaging and educational for you. If you liked the video, don't forget to like it, share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes about amazing aspects of history. And in the comments, tell us which aspect of the medieval fair seemed most interesting to you. What would you buy, or what entertainment would you engage in if you found yourself at a fair in the 14th century? In future episodes, we'll continue revealing little-known but fascinating pages of the history of daily life of people from the past. Perhaps it's in them that the key to understanding not only the past, but also the present lies. Until our next meetings on our channel, where history comes alive.